How do the learners become their best self? How can we give them more than just a chance to succeed? This is our session today. Let me remind you of the team. We have Emma up there, we have Veronique, the wonderful artist, we have Sumitra, we have Shefali, and you have your bold German. Boy, did we come a long way. This was a good journey. We started somewhat 2 months back discussing us. Who are we? Introverts, extroverts. How does it impact our online approach? What's about them? Pragmatists, activists, reflectors. What can we extract from the crowd and how can we make it work? How can we create momentum in that online space? Then we had the session with Sumi talking about tech and trying to move us from, hey, don't follow all the best practices, all the articles. Ask yourself, what is your strengths, what's your weakness, and what role can tech play? How can tech become a partner to you? And then we had David coming out of Tennessee, telling us stories from across the world. And kind of after 6 minutes into the story, he turned you into storytellers. We had this wonderful breakout where you shared, based on a very simple question, this notion, can you tell a story about somebody who inspired you in the classroom? And it was this storm of feedback which we had. Then we had Adrian coming in, ice breaking. And the lesson was kind of, if there's a tech hiccup, it's a wonderful moment for icebreaker. This is what it gets. Make icebreaking a continuous effort rather than one instance of kind of creating some energy which buzzes out at the end. No, these are synchronous modes we're operating in. It gives us opportunities for icebreakers to learn more about the crowd for us. We had Nana talking about empathy. We had Frank dealing and discussing with us about the breakouts. And last time, how do we get our best selves? And this was, you remember, Tinia? Wow, it was fun. You remember this? Everybody on screen kind of using their voice, starting the music before, kind of getting the language right. I loved it. Even Sumitra on a certain point sitting in front of his computer. The whole set of exercises just to get us warm 15 minutes before we get on stage, on the virtual stage. But also keeping in mind, you're not only the teacher, you're the composer of the curriculum. There's all the pieces which we've done, but then you become the conductor. It is on you to manage this. And this is essentially the lead we're going to have to the next step. How do they become their best? And ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Sabine. Sabine, she's a wonderful person. She looks very elegant. She's very nice. She flies in, very calm. When I met her, kind of somebody told me about Sabine and what she does and how. So we got her into the room and I saw this wonderful lady, beautiful, elegant, entering the room. And then she kind of starts and she goes under the skin of the people. Now, what you realize, or what I realized and had to learn, was this wonderful thingy. I believe I've got energy. But on a certain point, it happens that you find your master. If there's somebody who has even more energy than me, this is Sabine. So who else, the facilitator, the coach, the powerhouse, can tell us how you get them to be their best? And this is all I'm going to tell you at the moment about Sabine. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I'm going to put Sabine on the spotlight and we start the conversation. But first, as usual, Sabine. March 2020, everything breaks down. Yes. What happened to you at this moment? How did you deal with it?
What happened to me, I was one of the first getting the virus. So in March 2020, I went ill for 8 months. So it was a long time, I can say. I recovered in October 2020. This is one part, and I'm never ill, in fact. I've never been ill my whole life, but this time 8 months. Second, my whole business has broken down within 2 months. So all coaching activities, all facilitation activities, everything closed, done, scheduled for whatever. And I would say in June 2020, 70% of my activities came back to me and 70% of them are online. So I have to coach online, I have to facilitate online, I have to create online. So it is for me a complete, a turnaround, breakthrough, I would say, in terms of how can we learn to do differently and how can we transform a situation into new success questions, I would say. So that is what happened to me. And I really have to tell, I'm happy. I was happy in October 2020 when I was back in terms of health.
Now the key question, we're both living in France. We both love wine. I don't tell you the others why. I know that you love wine. But what's with your nose? The smell is back?
Smell is back, but my very often I have the opposite of what people tell, you know, so I have not lost my smelling capacity. It was amplified. So when where I was, it was like, it's like I asked everybody no perfume anymore, nothing anymore, because it was oversensible. So for me, it was the other way around, as it sometimes or very often is in my case.
Very good.
But it was nice.
This puts us in the middle of the subject. So Sabine is somebody who coaches, and she coaches up to the highest level, the most serious people who believe the most serious. And I've seen her kind of getting under the skin. So she is able to get people out of their reservations and become good. So the big challenge for us in this online world is not only preparing us, but preparing them. So Sabine, what are the lessons learned which you would like to share, or what are the aspects which you think should be of relevance for us?
On your question on what is the best self for our learners, how can we help them? Okay. Yeah. As Jens said, I take it also on the, let's say, with you together. So maybe I will ask you questions, or I will need to see you, because this is my way of working. And second is maybe to fundamentally, my main question or my whole life is around what is it I have to change so that others can show up with their best capacities. Okay, it's my whole life is turning around that, either as a mother, as a coach, as a facilitator. It's always about what can we change first so that others can express something new. I am no more working on what is it that the other can change, because in terms of relationship, I always think we have to start first. So this is the way I have just thought a little bit of your question of how can we find the best in others, and maybe to give you the general idea after I will explain you what I've seen in the last month in terms of change, as I've done myself, is a little story. Maybe you know it, but I really love it because it sort of comes off, brings it a little bit to the essence. So it's the story of the 3 bricklayers. Maybe you know the story. Anyhow, it was in 1671. So a guy called Christopher Wren has to build a big building, and he went to the field and looked and observed the bricklayers. And one day he has seen 3 of them, one half standing, another one standing very tall, and another crouched, all working very hard and fast. So he was really intrigued, like, what is that for a message? And he asked the first one, what are you doing? And the first one replied, I'm a bricklayer. I'm working hard laying bricks to feed my family. Okay, very interesting. Thinks about it, yes, people are working like this, it's something in. Second one is, what are you doing? And the bricklayer responded, I'm a builder. I'm building a wall. Okay, so we're going from working with bricks to building a wall, and then he get to the third one, which is, what are you doing? And he replied with a sort, you know, with this feeling in the eyes, and he said, I'm a cathedral builder. I'm building a great cathedral for the next generation. So this is the story, and my question for you will be immediately, what is the message from this little story? If you have to write down one, what would be the message, the lesson you learn out of this story, helping you to get the best out of your learners? So just take 30 seconds. It's not maybe to share, but it's just, okay, what is the message for me? What is in for me in that story? Which is, I think, very interesting. They have a lot of ways to do it. Is it possible that one of you or 2 of you just share?
Sabine, they're starting to type in the chat. Give it another 30 seconds. The chat is starting.
I see. Oh, you are so great already. Okay, purpose, vision, we need all bigger purpose. Yes, vision, perspective. Okay, great. So this is really my question about, thank you very much for being, I love it. I love it to be so interactive. It's really, thank you very much. So to put it a little bit further on this question of meaning, what I have seen is three ways we could approach the question of how can we change ourselves. So the first way to look at this is what kind of frames we can reframe. And I will come back on it. The second is what can we change in our mindset so that we open up a different field for knowledge and for understanding for our students or people we want to learn or learners. And three, how can we maybe reframe even this concept or this activity of transmission? What does it mean to transmit something? Very rapidly, do we transmit knowledge, trust, power, hope in life? Since I'm somebody who says we are what we transmit, I think it's very interesting to ask ourselves the question, what is it we would like to transmit to those who we meet? Okay. This is part one, sort of introduction. If I'm coming to the frames, because Jens really told me to bring it to a summary and then either have a discussion asking your questions. My question on frames is really, I think, an interesting one because we can really have a power to reframe our frames. So what I've observed when working with my clients, but also with colleagues, and we all have the same question, is first of all, the knowledge frame. Before, let's say before, it was what I've seen and what people told me, in general, my added value was about knowledge and transfer of knowledge, of expertise, and somehow creating a little bit the frame of, let's say, ambience, of a way to work together. Remote, as I experience it today, my added value is to create the desire to engage. How can we create the desire with people to engage in what we are sharing, to engage in learning, and to engage in something which is not only a passive listening mode. So that's why I'm liking all what you have done on empathy, on music, on icebreakers, all these questions I think are very, very, very interesting. Second frame, let's say what I'm calling the interaction frame, it meaning sort of how we communicate, how we interact together. So for me before, it was somehow a rule like the learners listen, they absorb, and they rework. Sort of, if I go to the amphi, they go there and they are in a listening mode. I think today it's different in remote. It's learners have to elaborate first their own thinking on what is the subject. My job is to facilitate, and I add knowledge dots to what they do already. It's like when I'm asking you, what is the question, the meaning of the story? It's this principle. You do first, I look, and I add maybe something, but it's not me starting from the beginning. And then maybe a last one, which I'm calling the power frame. Okay, I really think remote management and all what we are facing today questions power frames, the power in relationships, the power of interacting. So before, as a professor or somebody who facilitates something, it was like I control the flow of the content. I create my story, my content. I manage the interaction. This is an exercise. This is a question you ask me. And my job at the end is I evaluate their learning and their knowledge. That's the power way before. I think today it's different. It's my first job is to open the field of learning, to share power with the learners. In fact, to accept that they choose to listen or not. It's no more about me, but they will choose to listen because they can listen you or they can go somewhere else. I propose a content and we will co-evaluate together what it means. So in fact, it's power sharing. And fundamentally what it means, it's sort of changing our inner attitude of letting go control, even the illusion of control, show up a sort of vulnerability, which is don't know what is the right answer to your question. And it's really to accept that we can be transformed by our learners. They can influence us. We open up to their learning, so in which way we can transform, which will create a new interaction field, which will help the learners to show up with their best, because we all want to be influenced by the best of others. So I think this is the frame part. And I really have seen that by just taking these 3 frames, we can already change, or it has changed, in fact, the way to interact. My most important, I would say, not learning, but it's really like, how can we open up to accept that we are transformed by our learners? So I've learned that with my kids, I've learned that with my clients, and as a coach, I'm going for that. And by the way, I think it's very interesting to always be questioned and transformed by others. And maybe in addition to that, 2 things I would add in terms of experience, but probably you know, and I think really we have a culture difference. It's about what is it we're looking at when we see people? Do we look at them by searching for the best, giving positive feedback, encouraging the best, or do we look for what can be optimized, what can be changed, what can be done differently? So I like to have in mind that in a good relationship, normal relationship, the rule is 3 positive feedbacks for 1 negative, which is already for a lot of people a challenge. In love, children and student-professor relationship, it's 5 positive for 1. So it's a change of mindset, like how can we give 5 positive feedbacks to a learner before we start telling him this you can change? And this is a complete mindset, and I really think it's not easy, at least in France, I would say. It's a major challenge. In other countries, it's less important, okay? But even in Germany, you know, to look for 5 positive comments, it's a change by knowing that we have, let's say, 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. 80% of them are the same than the last day. So just even there's a lot of place of getting knowledge in, and 94% of them are negative. So if we really would like to create a culture of positive learning, it's a huge investment on our side. Okay? It's going against neurobiology, it's going against culture, but it's like, if I want to see the best in others, the best way to start is see it and tell them. Voila. I would stop here, Jens, as a first input, because otherwise I can speak for hours and I will just do what I think is no more necessary, meaning speaking. So,
would you mind if I just show 1 slide summarizing the 3 frames which you kind of shared with us? So kind of to make it very clear to the participants. Look, talking about the knowledge frame, added value, creating the desire to engage, the interaction frame. It's the learners elaborate first, things we've done. Then our role is to facilitate, to add the knowledge dots. I love this notion of the knowledge dots.
Mm-hmm.
The power frame, rather than us controlling everything, it's an open field. It becomes an open exploration. First, it's their choice to listen, but then it is also to become a co-creator of the story. Is this a fair summary?
For me, Jens, it's perfect. I don't know what
I stole it from you. That's all.
what the people in the field say. Okay, but for me, it would be really interesting to have a sort of reactions, or maybe I will also give you a question to think about yourself, and then maybe afterwards sharing what is you propose, Jens.
Let's get, before we're going to send it to the groups, there's the one or the other reaction, the one or the other comment.
That would be great.
Come on.
The comment.
What do you think of the frames? What are the challenges? Guys, I'm going to call you all up.
This is the moment in remote management where you have a slight feeling of being alone, So, more you can have a spontaneous comment back at this. Yes.
Okay. So I really loved many of the things which you shared, and that illusion of control. I think that's something which is very important for me. And the other thing which you talked about, the giving the positive feedback to students. I have seen generally, it's a general tendency, and you spoke about your country, but I think in India also, when we talk about students, we see negatives. Oh, they are not listening, they're keeping their cameras off, or, we don't know, they're not answering the question. So can we just change this narrative? And can we just, bring out some positives? And I personally say that the students are really remarkably more intelligent than personally to me. They're more technological savvy. They're more smart. So I think we need to bring that. So thank you for putting that. And I love that 5-1 sort of rule. And I'm going to share with my faculty members. I have my colleague, Professor Hemant, also with me. I think together we'll share with our faculty.
Okay, thank you.
Nalini, she has a very good question.
Thank you.
Can't hear you. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Thank you very much, Sabine. My question is, what makes these frames that you've come up with, what makes them unique to the online experience? Why were you not feeling that? Why were you not experiencing that in the real physical world? What stopped that happening?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for this one. In my way of being in interaction, I have done this before. I agree. In the way of interacting in my coaching activity, I think a lot of people, even my colleagues, they said it's an option. It would be better if. It would really be better if this, and we all will do it next time, But in reality, they did not change, okay? But now in remote, it's like on the screen, it's even worse if you are speaking for an hour, because people do something else. By the way, you see the eyes going somewhere. They put off, you see them, tapping like this. And in fact, it's a real question now of engaging relationships through the screen. And what before was an option of it would be nice to have, now it's really like it's what is at stake to get this relationship work. So that, I think the interesting thing with remote, it's not new, but it has amplified the need of going into that direction. And that is, I think, the real good thing of remote.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree, because it's now they feel the pressure of having their students' engagement.
Yes, because it's really a pain. I mean, if you are in front of a screen and you see everybody sort of showing up but not being present,
right?
It's a feeling of it's really not nice. So everybody tries to do something else because it is no more possible. And in the classroom or in the amphi, you could somehow play with it, You could have your own theater by telling yourself, yes, they are listening, but now it's visible. So it's less nice.
I would like to have Isabella.
Thank you.
Okay.
Isabella and Barbara, can we have these two more comments? Isabella, you posted something into the chat. Share a little bit more with us.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I can't turn on my camera. Long story short, it looks like my screen is going, so new computer is on order, unfortunately. But I know, right? I mean, COVID. Yeah, I found the power dynamic really interesting, and I'm trying to figure it out. I mean, obviously there was a power issue, right? I mean, or there is power, right? I'm controlling everything going on, but somehow I never thought of it that way. I actually saw myself as facilitating. So, and Sabina, you would know this, right? So as you facilitate, you really don't have power. You're not supposed to have power, right? You're supposed to be the guide. So I found the power framework really interesting because I just really didn't see it that way. So I'm having a hard time negotiating with that frame because I can't feel it, right? So for me, I still feel like a facilitator. So it's interesting maybe to hear what other people feel about that, right? Do they feel some power? Because I certainly don't.
And here I bring Barbara into the conversation.
Barbara.
Okay, so what for me is empowering is the meaning. That means indeed to get a feeling to encourage people rather than to optimize them. For me, that's really the key. That is a really paradigm shift, to use this big word. To reveal something what is in the people already. I think that's a real task for facilitators, because for my belief, from my view, we have all in our body and mind already. There's nothing to do add on. So, and I mean not this pure knowledge we need for the materialized life. I mean this wise wisdom, holy wisdom inside from everybody, human. So, and that only need to be touched, and to encourage people, in my view and my experience, is that the most of the people don't know that that all is fine, that the wise is in them. They don't know, they are always searching in their life to the meaning, to purpose, to achieve something, to step by the goals, and so this life get very struggling for them. And my view is our best key is to touch them, that they get aware that they are already be ready, that there's nothing to achieve than touching the deep anchor in themselves. And that, I'm very sure, is absolutely independent if you're working with CEOs and all this blah blah blah, or young people. All human have the same need and feeling for that. It's only a question from didactic and methods. Maybe they're different to get it in their awareness.
Yes. Maybe I will have a short comment, and then we can propose questions, Jens, in breakout rooms. I think it could be very important as well. I completely agree, Barbara, on what you're saying. My observation is, in our unconscious mind, or even consciously, we have power systems. So the moment a professor, I would say, comes in, there is the power of evaluation he has in the mind of people. It's like he will say yes or he will say no. I provoke a little bit, I push it a little bit, okay? And even for me as a coach, sometimes I'm coming and they say, you have to know what we have to do. Okay, but maybe not, but I'm supposed to know. So how can we accept this first transfer of power, let's say, which is normal for a lot of reasons, and how to give them the power back? And that is the process. It's like, okay, they transfer on me, I can do, and my job is, look, we can do something together. Maybe yes, maybe no. And I've seen really a lot of people, like, especially in CEOs and everything, the CEO is coming, it's like power mechanism at place, okay? It's inevitable. But how we can bring humanity to these power frames, I think that is the question of the next century. How we can create this humanity with these mechanisms, that will be very interesting, I think, to look for, and I agree. And that is when I say, maybe, Barbara, to finish, it's like, how can we reframe the word transmission? What does it mean? Okay, what do we really transmit? Is it the hope of the future? Is it the trust in the next generation? Is it the positive spirit of already it's in you, as you said, Barbara? This is, we can decide. We can decide on that, what we would like to give.
Perfect. There is, I'm going to show up with the questions in a second, but I want to make a note on Namitra's comment about the video being on or not. I think it's a very important conversation. If you're going to have some time at the end, I'm going to come back to it. Otherwise, do us the favor, do us as the community a favor, send us some mails. Send us some comments, not only in the chat, so we're going to record the chat, but also I think the question and the different perspectives on video or not, what does it bring, what does it not, I think is a very important question. But yes, we're going to run out of time, so let me go into the question frame, which we're going to have prepared for you. Is the screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, then I just need to move one. Oops, wait a moment.
Hope that
no, I'm jumped too far. Here. Our breakout for you. There are 2 questions, and we're going to split you in 2 groups, plus subgroups. The first question is, how could we succeed professionally in preventing our students from becoming their best? So turn the question around. What can we actively do to cannibalize their efforts? It's probably very revealing to understand what it is. So
I insist on the word professionally. Okay, what can we really professionally do so that we really prevent our students to become their best self? Wait, merci, Jens.
The second one is, this is much more for us. This is the second group. What did we experience during this program that allowed us to share the best of ourselves? Are there examples which we all went through together, which we can build on, which might have added to the conversation? So, Emma, I'll leave it in your wonderful hands. We're going to split up in groups of 4, 5. The first part goes for question 1. How can we be professional and cannibalizers? The second, and you give us the numbers from X to Z. What were examples or experiences which actually add to our conversation in a positive way?
Okay, so groups 1 through 3, so 1, 2, and 3 are answering the first question. What can you do to professionally prevent their success? And then groups 4, 5, and 6, again, 4, 5, and 6 are answering that second question. I will send a message in the chat so that everyone can see it when you get into your breakout rooms, just to remind you. I'm going to open them up now and send you all away.
Okay, let's start with the first group. How can we professionally cannibalize this?
Okay.
What comes to mind? And there was this, Anastasia had the question, why do you formulate this question negatively? It is just to force you into a different perspective. If you understand what we can do professionally, we actually get the negative, the other side of the picture. So
I don't even understand that question. In fact, I'm so intrigued by that question.
So share us more.
So
what was
for group 1, we discussed we have Anamitra, June, Deepak, and Femi and myself at Sinike in the group. And we come up with 5 things that we can do to professionally bring the best out of our students or participants. The first one is being strict with timelines and deadlines. So when they see that as an instructor or a facilitator, you are strict with timelines and deadlines, then they know that we mean business. It's not just to come and play. And also to be consistent with the instructions we give as a facilitator or an instructor. Then during the course of the session or the class, it's better to share personal stories to engage them. At least try to see that they're interacting in class and giving their own parts. That way you know that you are actually getting through to this one. And the last one is to as an instructor, you need to engage in different teaching styles. You need to bring variety into the class. That way, you know that you're not following one road. Like today you teach them this way, the other day you teach them the other way, so that way they are not tired of your teachings and they're always looking forward to the new things they're going to bring into class every time they come in contact with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antinuka. Sabine, a quick reaction, or shall we listen to the others?
No, just my question is, did you respond to the question, how do we prevent / sabotage the fact that our learners bring the best, or did you reframe my question into what can we do so that they bring the best?
So we worked on what can we do to bring the best out of them.
That's it. So this is called reframing of my question, because my question is how to fail that, you know, but I see that you have done a different thing, which was quite interesting. Thank you. It's interesting, but that is the evidence of free framing. Okay, no problem.
Any of the two other groups?
Thank you very much.
Who speaks up?
How can we sabotage?
Who's speaking?
Who's speaking? Maybe somebody else of this group.
Shall I take it for group 3?
Please, Chris, come forward.
Yes, so I was in a group with Tatiana, Barbara, and Isabella. And we wanted to present our students with a lot of very dull material. We'd be only be sending, so as less interaction as possible. Yeah, so if they want to do something else, that doesn't bother us much. Because we wouldn't be, we would only be interested in sending our materials and messages. We would take advantage of the technology that we have to our disposal by muting people if we are done with listening to what they say. We would be able to ignore any comments that we think are irrelevant or that we don't like, and only respond to the comments and questions that we think are appropriate or fit our class or purpose. And if they would be sharing their stories with us, if we would allow it, or their examples or what, or answering our questions, we would not hesitate to correct them all the time if we feel that it's not 100% correct what they're saying. So basically letting them know who is in charge and who knows more about the subject than anybody else in the meeting. That's basically what we came up with in our group.
I love it. Thank you very much. So 2 things on the way. Why? First of all, is very often it's a very creative session. It's like once we are in the sabotage mode, in reality, people love it because it's very creative. And in fact, we speak out what is sometimes already there, but we would like to change. So that's the sabotage question. And in fact, when we want to do something, our unconscious mind does at the same time want the opposite. Okay? We would like to change and we do not change. So the only way to get to the no changes is the sabotage creative way. Okay, you can look to your list and each of you can ask yourself, oh, maybe sometimes I'm not muting, but it's just I'm not listening on the comments because I have my stuff to go through, you know, which is part of it. Okay, so you can go to this great list and probably you find your personal way of sabotage. And if you find it, be happy. Love yourself for it. At least you have it identified. Okay, so I really thank you very much. And I love it to bring people on mute.
Okay,
I haven't seen
quickly, the third group. Anything to add to the conversation? Let me see the hands of those of you. Tatiana, you good?
Yeah.
Let's switch to the second one. What was in our journey experience? What was there anything you can say kind of, look, be honest, but is there anything which kind of would add to the positive side of the experience?
I mean,
4, 5, 6. Rosemary.
I'm happy to comment from our group, which was Oscar, Yatund and Rina. There was quite a list of things that have made it a positive experience. One was the way the environment's set up at the beginning, particularly as the weeks go on, there's a feeling of safety. The presenters have been very generous. They've accepted that we're here to learn something. So there's no getting it right and wrong. It's just a view. And, you know, that is very helpful. I think there's a lot in the design, that there's different elements used which break up, because people, as the previous group says, they do not appreciate the send mode, the broadcast mode. We all just switch off from that. So the design was, you know, it's very helpful, it's very supportive. Good level of engagement with the breakouts and the chats. Some people are very, very efficient on chats. I'm much less efficient on that. For me personally, it's a big thing to have camera on, huge thing to have camera on. And I would, you know, add to that, I work with executives in corporations, and sometimes it's compulsory to have camera on. So very different view, but we did appreciate the fact that Jens and you, Sabine, are camera on. You know, that's an engagement piece. What else was there? Also the content. You have stuck very well to the content. The content is to help us as the students be more effective at our job. So the content has been very consistent to the brief that we got at the beginning. So others in the group, if I've missed out something, please chip in.
I think you were great.
Is that okay, Rina? I got all your points.
You're perfect. Thank you, Rosemary.
You're very welcome.
From the other groups, share some of your reflections, your comments. Let us learn. Hello. Whoa, Divya, there's a long chat coming in. No, speak up. Come on.
Okay, so my group, yeah, so thank you. My group wanted me to share quickly. So we discussed that everyone has benefited personally as well as professionally as a facilitator. One of our group member was non-teacher, but she shared that she has also benefited in terms of personal and professional both. Personal level, as I mentioned about the empathy, that knowing that, you know, we have to be self-compassionate. I mean, to say sometimes the things doesn't work, it's okay. And to know the better engagement tools, and a feeling of connectedness, that safety net, which Rosemary also talked about. So we all felt that. We all appreciated the breakout rooms because we were able to gain the different perspectives, and those different perspectives helped us personally as well as professionally to see the context, to see the constraint, because many of us were not aware about the issues like bandwidth, or the power cut or such kind of issues.
Oh, I'm having classes, please. I want to.
Then you know how the thinking from the learner's point of view. We have always been the teacher. You know, many of us felt that this has given, or rather, you know, one person especially felt that now she has started thinking as a learner, and that has helped her to see the learner's challenges. So I think that's something which is important. Of course, the various tools, which every session has given us some tool like icebreakers and other things, those things which we discussed. And personally, for me, one of the takeaway from this entire, last sessions is the visual summary, which, one of the teammate, Veronica, is doing. And that has motivated me to enroll in a visual class. And I have started taking notes visually because I really love the visual representation. So thank you so much. Please, group, if I missed out something, please add that.
Yeah.
Sabine, your reaction, then I switch to Veronique, and then we're going to go wrap up. Sabine.
So I'm really, first of all, touched by what you are saying. I really appreciated the interaction we had, your openness in terms of comments. I really appreciate, and it was just a great moment I had with you. So really from my heart, it's a thank you to you, to listen to me and to also challenge me. I really appreciate, and thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Sabine. Veronique, come up very quickly. Let's summarize the session. So this is what we went through, from bricklayer to builder to the cathedral builder, the knowledge frame, the interaction frame, the power frame, things we might not be conscious about. How do we reframe our activity transformation rather than saying we're good or bad? Kind of, how can we help us and them to go through these frames, being conscious? The question, should it have been before like this? Yes, but operationally, we were kind of just running down one funnel. The online part opens other funnels, and we have to choose. We can choose, and it allows us to reframe the story. Thank you very much. Let me kind of go back into my screening and give you a heads up with respect to next week. Next week, we're going to get to the last session of our series. How do you actually celebrate? And we're going to bring somebody in, Christian Rauch, and he is one of these, he runs the biggest festival in the world, which is dealing with science and art. So he uses both sides to communicate very complex matters into the world. We're going to have a very interesting conversation with him. And how can you, because he comes from the festival side, how can you use knowledge to celebrate? So this is our session next week. Ladies and gentlemen, Sabine, thank you very much. Emma, thank you very much. To everybody who has contributed, thank you very much. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.